What are the best and worst flexibility exercises for the side split? Well, in this video, I'll be ranking 20 of the most popular exercises on a tier list from S for super to F for fail, and by the end of the video, I'll crown one exercise as S+, meaning best of the best, and one as F-, so worst of the worst. Now, for your favorite exercise to make it to the S tier, it needs to rank well in 3 criteria. First, it needs to be suitable for all levels, and most importantly, it needs to be an exercise that even inflexible people can do. 2, it needs to be a position that you can perform with many flexibility methods and not just 1 or 2. Now, this can be confusing for many, so to explain it shortly, we currently have over 10 flexibility methods that attack flexibility through different physiological pathways. Examples of such methods are the passive static, on which you simply hold the position, the active dynamic, on which you move through your range, or the PNF contract-relax, on which you alter between contraction and relaxation. Using all the available methods allows you to produce results much faster simply because you utilize all known mechanisms that increase flexibility. However, due to the different setup of each exercise, some exercises can be performed only with 1 or 2 methods, while others with all of them. So the ones that allow the use of more methods rank higher. The third and last criterion is that it needs to strike a good balance between overall fatigue and end range activation. So here we look at how much time the target muscle is stretched at the end range vs how fatiguing the exercise is for other non-relevant parts of the body. The more you can stretch the muscle without systemic fatigue, the better the exercise ranks. Now, the side split is limited by the adductor muscles, a large muscle group on the inner thigh that is stretched during leg abduction. These muscles are divided into 2 groups, short and long. The short adductors run from the pelvis to the femur, so they can be stretched even with bent legs. The long adductors extend below the knee, requiring straight leg exercises to stretch them fully. Here we'll explore mainly straight leg exercises that target both groups, but also some variations with bent legs that target only the short ones. That's because both categories are useful for the side split. However, for reasons that I've explained in another video, I won't include loaded stretching exercises here, as I find them highly ineffective and sometimes even harmful. In my opinion, all the exercises that use enough weight to push you beyond your regular range rank at F or worse. That's because although these exercises feel rewarding at first, they ultimately ruin progress by skyrocketing your soreness in the days following training. I won't dive into it now, so if you want to learn more, you can watch my dedicated video on that topic. Here we'll focus on the 20 most popular body weight exercises for the side split. So let's start with a famous Kazakh squat, which is one of my favorite exercises, but sadly not for flexibility development. First, for very inflexible people, this is an impossible position since they can barely start the movement. Supposed solutions with the elevated position of one leg don't really help, as the problem also comes from tightness of the standing leg, which has a much harder time when it is elevated. On the other side, for those who have the basic flexibility to perform it, it's really hard to focus on range as it leads to a huge systemic fatigue on the quadriceps and glutes. It's also traditionally performed with only one method, the active dynamic. For all these reasons, although I use the Kazakh squat for end range strength development, specifically for flexibility gains, it goes to F. The pancake stretches the adductors effectively and is suitable for all levels with small variations for the positions. Its biggest advantage is that you can do it with more than 10 different methods, which means that you can use every known mechanism to increase flexibility. In addition, it's a comfortable position in which you can target the adductors directly with zero fatigue in other parts of your body. For all these reasons, it goes straight to the S tier as it's one of the most important exercises for the side split. Now, the standing pancake on the other side is a different story. Its main purpose is supposedly to help inflexible people leverage their weight in a better way. However, since you can do that by using a small elevation in a seated position, the standing variation becomes useless, especially since you have to go through a big deal of setup to execute it properly. The standing version is also extremely limited in terms of the methods you can apply, since you can do only a passive static hold or an active dynamic on which you move through range. And while it targets the desired muscles, the upside down position leads to a systemic fatigue that makes it hard to stay focused on the target muscles and for long sets. That being said, I don't see any reason in choosing the standing pancake over the traditional elevated pancake, and for this reason, the standing pancake goes to the F tier. The next one is the frog stretch, which targets only the short adductors. It's an easy to do all levels position, but it's slightly inconvenient to leverage your weight in the top positions and also a bit hard to progress on the low ones. It allows the use of only a few methods, but it isolates the muscles well with zero systemic fatigue. It's a useful exercise that I used to include in my programs, but because of the difficulties I mentioned and the limited methods you can apply on it, I think it deserves to be in the B tier. The more Instagrammy adductor fly is actually a great stretch if you already have a certain level of flexibility. However, I've coached people that started at 70 degrees on the side split time and time again, and for them, this exercise doesn't make sense. For those that can go further below, it only allows for the use of 3 methods. The passive static, on which you just hold, the antagonist active range, where you pull your legs down with the strength of the glutes, and the active dynamic, moving through range. 3 methods are not bad, but still a lot less than the 10 plus you can use in other positions. It will also cause some global fatigue in the glutes and hip flexors that support the position. This is good for overall strength, but doesn't help in the flexibility development of the muscles that are being stressed. For this reason, specifically for flexibility gains, it goes to the D tier. Its wall-supported version limits the systemic fatigue on the hip flexors and for this reason takes a higher ranking. However, I rank it only to C since there are no easy ways to progress other than weights, which, as I explained earlier, it's a terrible choice. Also, its single leg variation can only be performed dynamically and with no easy way to progress. It's a brilliant exercise for end range strength and personally, I use it every week. However, I'm already flexible and I didn't get flexible with exercises like this one. The single leg adductor fly goes to D. Now, the Taylor pose is probably one of the most popular exercises for the adductor muscles. Similar to the frog stretch, it targets only the short adductors. It's ideal for all levels and most importantly, you can perform it with every known method. You can also focus on the targeted muscles with zero fatigue on irrelevant parts of your body. It ticks all the right boxes and for all these reasons, it goes right to the S tier. The Taylor pose is a brilliant exercise for the side split. Moving on, let's see the cable seated good morning. That's the only loaded stretch I'll discuss here, simply because it was recently popularized on social media. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the worst exercises you can do for flexibility gains. First, it's supposed to target the short adductors only, since the knees are bent and to the sides, meaning the long adductors, the hamstrings and the glutes are shortened. However, to stretch the short adductors effectively, you need to have also a wider and wider position of the knees, similar to what we do on the frog stretch and the Taylor pose. However, this is not possible with this one, since the moment you go wide enough, you lose your support against the weight. So it targets only the short adductors in a limited, suboptimal way. Then, my big issue with this exercise is that you get an immense systemic fatigue on your lower back and legs. Most of the people I've seen working with this one simply stop by an exhausted lower back, and the free weighted version is much worse. If you lower the weight to compensate for that, then the weight is not enough to pull you forward and the basic meaning of the exercise is lost. Even more, it is usually performed with only one method, the active dynamic. So, it's a loaded stretch that will probably skyrocket your soreness the next days, performed only with one method, the active dynamic, immense systemic fatigue on the lower back and legs, and the suboptimal position for the short adductors. It literally ticks all the wrong boxes, and since it's much worse than the other exercises on the F tier, I had to make a special tier just for this one. Let's call it a T for terrible. Next up is the half split, which is a great variation of the full split. It offers excellent targeting of the adductors while it's suitable for all levels. It also allows the use of every method on the book, but its setup makes it harder to execute active contractions as you get closer to the floor. You'll also end up spending double the time than just doing the side split since you have to stretch each leg separately. That's the main reason that I don't recommend it that much. However, it allows you to stretch the targeted muscles effectively, and for all its benefits, I think it clearly deserves to be on the A tier. Now, I didn't even know the next exercise until one of my students told me about it. It's called the straight leg get-up. In this one, you're supposed to get from a seated side split position to a hold position and then back again. This is a variation of the side split hold, but because of the very little time spent in the end range, the overall time under tension is very low to create results. In addition, the nature of the exercise makes it hard to even train close to your end range, since if you get to your max and then go back, it's very hard to get back on it. So you're basically forced to perform the entire exercise at a much shorter range than your max. I honestly struggle to find any benefits of this variation compared to the simple side split hold, and for this reason it goes to the F tier as well. Now the side split slides and the single leg adductor slide are essentially plyometric exercises. While these movements are great for targeting the adductors and easy to achieve for all levels, the plyometric contraction, which is the one on the way down, diminishes their effectiveness as flexibility exercises. That's because plyometric work is notorious for increasing soreness, which in turn ruins flexibility progress. So I would definitely use these exercises for strength development away from my max range, but not for flexibility gains. I don't want to be too picky here, but if I want to be fair, these exercises belong to the F tier as well. The side-to-side low lunge is supposed to be a functional way to increase flexibility. However, there are many problems with this exercise. Very little time under tension in each part of the muscle as you constantly switch positions, performed only with one method, the active dynamic, and an almost impossible position for very inflexible people. You also get a huge systemic fatigue on the quadriceps long before you achieve any significant stretch on your adductors. Definitely an F again. A better option seems to be the standing side leg stretch, which targets the entire group of the adductors in a comfortable position that doesn't induce systemic fatigue. It is also for all levels, as you can simply adjust the intensity of your stretch simply by adjusting the height of your support. The only downside of this position is that it can be performed with only two methods, the active dynamic and the passive static. For all these reasons it goes to C, but I would definitely rank this one higher if I could perform it with more methods. The sumo squat is again an exercise I use almost every week, but not as a main exercise for flexibility growth. For inflexible people, it's hard to even get to a low position, while at the same time, it's pointless for more advanced trainees that can go all the way down. The methods you can utilize are only two, the contraction active range hold and the active dynamic. Another downside is the fatigue on the quadriceps, which is a limiting factor of this exercise. Compared to the other option, it ranks in the D tier. Its wider stance version, the horse stance squat, also targets the long adductors, offering better activation. However, all the rest remains the same, so rightfully goes slightly above the sumo on the C tier. Moving on, the supine band adductor stretch is an effective way to stretch the entire length of the adductors for all levels. However, it can only be performed using one method, the passive static, and becomes uncomfortable to hold for extended periods. Despite its effectiveness, I'll put it on the C tier just because you can perform it only with one method. CrossFit people love the next one. It's a type of low lunge stretch with an externally rotated back leg. It can definitely be performed by a non-flexible person, which is a good thing. However, as you get lower, the side position of the back leg leads to a mechanical blockage of the hip. It basically leads your leg bone to hit against your hip bone. The methods you can perform here are again limited to the active dynamic and the passive static. Compared to the other options, and because of its mechanical disadvantage, I think it belongs around the D tier. And I saved the best for last. The side split position is the key exercise for the side split. It's suitable for every level, allowing you to focus on the targeted muscles with almost zero systemic fatigue. You can also perform it using more than 10 different methods, utilizing all available mechanisms to increase flexibility. It's a 10 out of 10 in every criterion and goes straight to the S tier alongside the pancake and the Taylor pose. Now, I already declared the cable seated good morning as worst of the worst. However, if I had to choose a second worst exercise for the F- tier, I would probably be between the Cossacks, the straight leg get-ups, and the side-to-side low lunge stretch. I'll have to go with the straight leg get-ups just because the other two at least make sense as end-range strength exercises. And if I had to choose an exercise as S+, it would of course be the side split itself, although I feel that the pancake is so important for the side split that it deserves to be on the S+ as well. Now, if it seems like only a few exercises made it to the top tiers, don't get discouraged because the S exercises are not just 3. Since you can perform these exercises with over 10 different methods, each of these positions results to over 10 highly effective exercise drills. If you want to find them all together in a comprehensive evidence-based system, you can check my program below. And if you want to learn more about original methods that I use in this program, you can watch this next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.